Hey guys, welcome to another video of Let's Talk. Why don't we go around before we start, introduce ourselves. So my name is Juanpis.
I'm Mello.
I'm Anna.
I'm Connie.
I'm the one and only Dante.
Yes. As usual, we have like our host here, but we have something different today and we have two guests. So we have Anna and Connie. These are youth from our youth group. Why don't you introduce yourselves again, your name, your age, and what grade you're in?
Okay, so I'm Anna, or Anna Rebecca, whatever you feel like calling me, honestly. I'm a junior, I'm in 11th grade, and I'm 17.
So I'm Connie. I'm not gonna say my real name because that's
Connie's not your real name?
no.
Bonkers.
Connie, what's your real name?
What's your real name?
My real name's Constanza.
Constancia.
That's a
No, not
name.
Constancia. Constanza.
Like Constance.
Constanza.
Yeah, like there's no I.
What a bombshell.
The things you
This
learn
is
in Let's
gonna be a
Talk.
I am a freshman, and I am 14. Turning 15.
Nice.
14,
So
15.
we have a freshman and we have a junior, and then we have people that graduated high school
And people dropped out of college.
and people dropped out. People that dropped out of college.
Sitting next
But we
to
don't
each other.
shame that. We don't shame that. Wait, you dropped out of college too?
Yeah.
Oh, you did your AA.
Well, I did my AA.
Oh, yeah.
sorry. Did
I
you take
did
it back?
Yeah. So nowadays we see it like very often how like we really get affected by mental health. From a person that recently graduated high school, I didn't really see it. It was really like taboo, or it was something that was handled like on your own. Like no one would know, and you would just go to, like a therapist. But like nowadays, it's like social media. Everyone in your friends knows. You'll like let a counselor know. Your teachers know, and I feel like it's something that you make public nowadays. That it's not that like you're not shamed of. So I want to talk about that in this video to start it off. So like, what have been your experiences with mental health?
So for me, I suffer with a lot of anxiety, and I go through like really deep depressive stages sometimes, and it's just like trying to go to school and like function when I'm scared consistently, like I'm stressed out consistently because I feel like the worst possible things are always like flowing through my head, and especially when I'm like through my like little depressive stages. Well, not little, but they don't feel little at the time. But when I'm in those stages, it's so hard to be like trying to go to school, put up this face that, okay, I'm fine. Like, I have to complete these tasks. I can't just stay in bed all day. I can't just mope around. Like, I have stuff to do. I have to get it done. So it's just like trying to deal with that and like push through that, especially at school where it's like from 7 to 2, and then after you have practices and stuff. So it's like a lot of time you have to put up like a certain front and like keep up with yourself like all the time.
Yeah, and I relate to the anxiety part. Like it's really hard to manage a lot of things like coming at you at the same time. So it's really stressful at times. Sometimes I do enjoy school, but it's really hard, especially since I love my A's. I love my parents like coming up to me and being like, oh, like, you know. I love academic validation, but sometimes it's really bad because I feed on that. I feed on that like necessity to be validated academically. And so it's just like very constant pressure that I put on myself without even noticing.
Yeah, because if you don't like get to that validation, you like put pressure on yourself. Even if it's like a B, you'll be like, oh, I need the A.
Yeah.
So let's talk about how you guys related to it, because like this is the experience of nowadays to how you guys saw it back then.
I was gonna say that. I think even what grade were you? You graduated what year?
2021.
2021. Last year. Okay.
Yeah.
And you say you didn't see it as much. Then like I think hearing you both right away. I mean, I was class of 2013, and I think same. Like I didn't see it as much. I don't know if it's because as society we didn't talk about it as much. I think now maybe because there's a name like to it, like to the feeling. I sometimes have moments where I've experienced like anxiety in some things, but I don't recall in school having or dealing with it, or like any of like what you guys just shared. Like I couldn't relate to that necessarily. I don't know if it's times or things have changed. It's almost 10 years ago that I graduated, but yeah, it wasn't necessarily a topic that was talked about or something. I don't know, Dante.
Yeah, class of 2010. You know.
Nope, 2010.
So I'm old.
Very.
So that's not something I saw in school at all. I mean, but it's also like me personally, and I'm gonna kind of turn this into a question for you guys right now. So be ready. But I was just kind of coasting through it. Like I didn't care about school, you know. Like I was just like I was there. I did what I needed to do to like pass my classes, and that was it. Like I wasn't trying to like have A's or have like these goals set for myself or anything like that. It's something I've worked on throughout like my life as I get older, but I've always kind of been someone who just kind of like, oh, I'll figure it out as I go along. So like getting bad grades and things like that never really stressed me out because it's just like, oh, it'll all work out for me. You know, that kind of like destructive mentality. Like, yeah, everything will be fine. You know, no matter what happens, everything will be fine. I mean, you know, God has worked a lot in me, and thanks to His glory and His favor, things have generally worked out for me. Which brings me to my next point, which I think it's like social media and all these things that we have now makes us see everyone's success like much more out there. You know what I'm saying? So like when someone is doing good in school, when someone is like achieving their goals and setting goals for themselves, like it's easier for us to see amongst ourselves. So I think it's easier for us to also compare. So I think that kind of creates an anxiety, you know? And especially, I mean, knowing you girls a little bit from, you know, youth group, you guys feel like are very goal oriented, you know? You guys are high achievers and you had set a lot of high goals for yourself. So how much of like your anxiety or stress for mental health do you think comes from like these lofty goals that you've set for yourself and like trying to do everything you can possibly to like make them happen and stressing out when it's like, oh, something went wrong and now like 10 years from now that one thing I wanted to do is no longer going to happen?
I do want to like go to school and study and like get my degree, even though it's not the traditional way, the route that my career is usually done. I want to do it that way because I feel like it's the easiest way for me to get the jobs that I want in my future. And since I don't have the money specifically to pay for that college, I have to figure out how to get it. And I have to be very, very attractive to scholarships and different people who might like, I don't know, do the scholarship things. I don't know what those people do, but they find money somewhere and they give it to kids. So like being attracted to that is so hard, especially like knowing that that's my one route. It's super stressful because if like my GPA isn't high enough, I don't qualify, and there it's done. I didn't qualify, and I'm stuck. I'm not attracted to at least 7 scholarships. Like I don't have the chance to get that money, and if I don't get there, it's like I'm becoming a disappointment more to myself. It's like my entire life I was like an A student, and then I get to middle school, and it's like all these hard classes. It's like they all hit me at the same time, and it was crazy for me to go from like this like carefree little girl who just did not care about school, did not do anything hard, like did not push myself, to having to like put myself into strict little goals. So it's just like so hard for my brain to start like turning those wheels so quickly that it just caused me a lot of like anxiety in order to like keep up with myself and keep up with like the other goals that my parents maybe even had for me, and that fell onto me because they would be like, oh, you're behind on assignments, what's wrong with that? Like, you've never been behind on assignments, you're missing assignments, why don't you do them? Like, why did your grades drop? So it's just like also having like everything digitalized too, because they can get my grades in like 2 seconds if they felt like it and print them out and be like, what is this?
Well, I kind of relate to like the like always being the straight A, right? Like I relate to that a lot. Oh my god, I always wanted like my good grades, you know what I'm saying? Always had those straight A's. And it's just really hard for me to not have that goal set. Like I need to have a really high standard in my brain, right? Like that's just what I think. And a lot of that is caused by that high expectation set from your parents and your grandparents and your aunts and your family members. You know what I'm saying? Like you have a lot of, at least for me, I have a lot of pressure in my personal circle. And it's very hard to kind of disappoint that, right? To let that down or to let that go. I feel like I always try, I'm a people pleaser. I always try to maintain people please, and that goes against me. You know, that's one of the things that I have to change about myself. And it's just a lot of these goals that I've set for myself is because I want to make a change. Like I want to break these stereotypes, and I want to, you know, do all these changes that are really immensely hard. So that's kind of why I push myself a lot, because it's not an easy thing to do.
It's really good. Let's talk about how you guys deal with that, because like it's really easy to like express it, but the hard part, which I feel like everyone watching this can relate to, is like, how do you deal with that?
Yeah.
Because for everyone, like let's say I'm the complete opposite as you guys. I never cared about school. When I did care, it was like for 9 weeks, and then I would do enough, and then again I'll try. But it was that simple thing of that was me rebelling against what my parents wanted for me. So it was like they always wanted the straight A's. My sister graduated with like I don't know like some cum laude, whatever it is, which one of those three from high school, and then she went on to FIU, and then she got her bachelor's degree in psychology, and she also graduated cum laude, and then she did like certifications and all of this. So like the expectations as the younger child were put very high, and I'm on path to like what I want for my own future. But it also affected like my state of health in that way of like I was like I'm failing, but at the same time like I feel you and like the getting attracted to scholarships and all that. I felt that, but then when I was like my grades don't give up, like don't give to that what they're expecting from me, I kind of gave up. But then seeing all my friends going to school, I was like, I could have been there. Like my friend and I were in the same academic like circle. We would always study together. We would do everything together. We'd have the same grades, and she got into FSU, or like she got into like another one got into Cornell. So it was like my expectations on myself were put so high, even though I made the personal decision of not going to college.
Yeah.
So it was like I put myself in my own bubble of like not hurting myself, but like putting myself down of why didn't you do that? Like you should have been doing this. You could have done better. You could have been in Berkeley. You could have been in Juilliard. You could have been in NYU doing what you really wanted. However, I put myself first, and I was like, this isn't safe, or it's not healthy for me to do this. So like the way that I dealt with it was kind of like, I guess accepting the fate that I chose. Like this is what I chose for my life. So like living with it, but doing the best out of it, doing what God wanted me to do, doing what I actually dreamed of doing since I was a kid. Like doing music was a passion of mine. I gave up because I couldn't pay for it, and then God just spontaneously put me in band. Then after that, I'm here. So
No, for me, it's like I have a plan that I have set for myself, but obviously God can switch that around in 5 seconds if He felt like it. So it's just like knowing that my plan might not be what goes down is what causes me that anxiety. That I have such a set plan, and I've convinced myself so much of that plan that that's gonna happen. That I'm gonna go there, I'm gonna go to my dream school, and I'm gonna get the job that I want. I'm gonna run that place. It's just what's gotten me to like it's gotten into my head and it's gotten into my system that if I don't complete that, I failed. I failed, and everybody's gonna be like, no, but you did all of this for nothing. Like you pushed yourself so hard. You did all these activities. You did all the extracurriculars. You did all the grades. You did all the work for nothing. And here you are, like not doing what you said to everybody that you would do. So it's also that social like problem that you tell people what you're gonna do, and some people just don't accept the fact that some things don't happen. And then like also with the family, like what Connie said, like your family sets such high standards, especially I'm the oldest, so I set the bar. And if I don't set the bar high enough, I set it too low. Like the Facebook mom thing, like look at my kid.
Yeah.
My kid got that straight A's. They're at the honor roll breakfast. What about your kid? Like I don't that it's just like that need of having my parents like wanting to brag about me being good enough for them, and good enough, like I guess since they're proud of my accomplishments so far, and yeah, they push me very hard, but I know to an extent that it's for good because they want me to be the best that I can be. But sometimes I can't even meet that standard myself because like my mental health gets in the way. Like some days I don't feel like doing that homework. I don't feel like getting up for school in that morning. I physically can't exert myself to that point of not being able to like complete to their standards, so then I don't meet my standards, and then it just falls. It just like catches up to me, and there's just one day where it just blows up, and that's when like I physically can't do anything, and it just like it puts me in such a state that I can't even complete what I had already started. So it just all backs up, and then there's points where just like it gets overwhelmed, and that's when the panic attacks happen, and that's when the depressive state starts. Everything culminating together is like school stress turns into home stress and turns into social stress, and it just all adds up to a certain point, especially like with social media. Everyone's lives look perfect. Even I'm not gonna lie, I make my life look perfect. Like I try to make my life look perfect. So it's just like knowing that everybody is faking it, but I'm joining in on the problem and still faking it.
Yeah.
So it's just like the fake it till you make it thing. People take it very literally, and I take it very literally. It's the point where romanticizing isn't actually doing, and I have to sit there and talk to myself. I have to stare at myself in the mirror and be like, hey, you didn't do it, and you gotta move on. You can't just stay stuck in the rut that you didn't complete the task or you didn't get that A. You got a C on the test. Okay, at least it's a C and not an F. At least it's a B and not a D. So it's just like knowing that I have to be nicer to myself in order to reach my goals is something that's hard to do specifically.
I like something that you said about like the social media thing, because again, that's another topic of like comparing ourselves, and it's not like, yeah, I was like on social media. However, people were like not allowed to get social media because like when Instagram became a thing, or like Instagram was already a thing, but it was like children couldn't be on social media, or like this was too harmful for kids, or people were using it wrongly. So it was like it wasn't that visible, or like people had like private accounts, so like only your 25 friends could see it. But like nowadays it's like 500 people.
500.
Yeah, 500 people are seeing every step of you on social media. 1,000 people are seeing you, or like you come to church and everybody knows you, or you just go to a supermarket and you're like, oh yeah, you're that person. That, oh yeah, you're like this person's friend. That also puts a pressure on you of not only like academically in school, but also like your behavior, I guess. Not changing your behavior everywhere, but it puts a pressure on you. And like we were talking about this like when we were on our way to the men's retreat, of how recently I felt the expectation of being a pastor's kid and being in the church just put like my standards and my expectations of being here like way higher. Of like I have to do this, and this to fulfill what people see as a pastor's kid. So it kind of affected me in the way of like, am I enough? Am I worth this? Should someone else have the position that I have? Should someone else be in the shoes that I'm in? Even being in school, it affects it. Like, should I be this person's friend? Should I really be here? Maybe I shouldn't be the one getting the scholarship. Maybe I shouldn't be the one that got into this magnet school. So I guess let's stay on the topic of social media, of how that affected. I want to start with you two, and then to see how it's affecting nowadays.
I was gonna, before we answer that, I was gonna quickly say that I think it's very important to kind of recall and point out what they both said, and you said it, that it's also like with the anxiety and like the standards that we put ourselves and that our parents put, like it's, although right now it's necessarily school, but that's something that like once school ends, it continues with you. Because I think Connie said it about like, you feed of that. Like I recently had like not a breakthrough necessarily, but came to the realization that with my dad, like I hadn't seen it. Like I was still blind to that I feed of him telling me you're so good. And like growing up, I, obviously that's topics that we kind of talk about, like of doing what he said. And even though that's a whole other topic, but like with Dante, my relationship, and that being one of the only things I like went against him, I also saw like I wasn't getting my straight from the source that I am enough, that I am like that what I do is enough for God, but I need that validation from my dad. And I think that's a lot of the problem, right? Like we are feeding of these things that we gotta do. With that, there's that mix of what you were saying. There's things out of our control. Like you can't control whether you get a scholarship or you don't. You could do your part. You do everything you can as far as school and all that. But at the end, even if you do it all, it's not guaranteed that you're gonna get it, right? And that frustration maybe of like, like it's out of your control comes in all these things of like trusting God and like, getting our validation and coming to the Father daily, because this is not something you deal with once a week or like once a time in the semester. Because at the end, that's just like, when we graduate and we have all this certifications, like it, or we have their paper, right? Like at the end they are. But, we grow up, or especially, like, we see that in social media of other people graduating and getting into different, into different projects or different things and looking successful, create, obviously, that expectations for all of us to do better. I got Instagram literally my senior year. It was 2012 to 2013. I think that's when Instagram started. Yeah. And I was allowed to be in social media. But I think social media affects so much. Like everything, but we do have the power that we give it. Like you were saying, I think we all, I fall into like making like the perfect story, the feed match, colors, the filters, and it's so easy to fall into it. So easy. Like maybe not Dante, right? Like he doesn't. I don't think that's
They're
gonna be
like,
his case. He just reposts all my stories or anyone that tagged
Or
him. If you
anyone
gotta
that-
be
yes.
reposted, tag Dante, and he'll repost whatever you tag him in.
Yeah.
But that is so hard because it becomes a part of who we are, and we have the power we give it. Sometimes I've had thoughts of like wanting to go like no filters on anything because it does become like part of like we become attached to that. And something I was talking to someone, I forgot who, last week about that. Like I think that we don't notice how much we also have influence over people. Like sometimes it happens to me in a live. Like some girls like I was stalking your Instagram, and it's funny. Like they go way down and like see when me and Dante started dating and things like that. In the moment, obviously, I don't think of like who's gonna see it. Like I maybe don't do it in intentions of like making it seem like a perfect relationship or a perfect life. But when you see that people are looking right at that and being part, like we partake in that, it gives a sense of responsibility to like, all right, I should be careful because I'm also adding on to this. In our relationship, like dating, I always wanted to make sure that no one thought our relationship was perfect. Like I think I took any chance I could when we would hang out with people to be like, but we struggle because it's like you could look like everything could look so pretty in social media, and it's not necessarily. I mean, it doesn't mean it has to be horrible either because it's highlights of your life.
Well, to give a different perspective of things and like social media, I personally, when I got social media, I was like 11 or something or 12, and my mom was like, no. And I was like, okay. And then she let me have it when I was 13, like when I just turned 13. And honestly, I was not that type of person that cared, right? Like you guys are talking about like the image you portray,
Right.
and what everyone is seeing, But personally, me, I didn't care. Like I didn't care about editing stories, Like I was talking like before this, like how like his stories are so perfect and like so like aesthetic-y. And like it's just like I would never put that much effort into a story, right? Because like no offense,
Keep roasting One Piece.
I'm not roasting.
One Piece is done, guys. He quit.
not trying to roast anyone who does, right? But just giving a different perspective, right? And then I remember once when I was in school, and I sometimes post like here and there, right? Like really random stuff, and my friends were like, "Isn't it like embarrassing for you to not care on what you post on social media, right?" And like that's kind of an example of how much you feed into something. That like when people don't do it, even though it's just an app, even though it has no real influence in who you are or how you interact with other people, we feed into it so much that we think that it does. I personally feel that like sometimes when like my post isn't aesthetic-y or like all perfect and pretty, people comment, like people tell me, and people are like, hey, like why don't you try? And I'm just like, it's just an app, it's just social media, and that's just how I see it, right? But I understand why there's that feeding into it, right? Why we feed into it sometimes, because it's hard. It's really hard to not be part of something that everyone is, or almost everyone is basically part of.
Yeah.
Or not reposting every single story that you're tagged in.
Yeah. You gotta repost those stories. Do it when you tag me at kind of Dante. I will repost your story, even if I'm not in it. That's the aesthetic of my Instagram.
That's his aesthetic.
Yeah.
Repost.
Repost only. So when I was growing up, like I said earlier, like it was just like the beginnings of social media. Like from on MySpace, and then I would be like on AOL Messenger, which I don't know if you guys know.
I know what that is. I know what that is, but I never.
Yeah,
I mean, I was
AIM
6.
AOL Messenger. It was mostly just about like communicating with people. Like literally, I was on MySpace most of the time to like send messages to friends. I don't think there was a feed. You would like post to your wall, and people would have to go to your profile to see what you posted on your wall. Right. But it wasn't like a feed of everybody's things, right? So you would only really follow your friends, and then you would have to like go onto their profiles to see if they had posted anything. It's not what it is now, right? I don't think social media had any influence over me. After like the thing back then was like, yo, who's in your top 8? Like, who are you really friends with? Like that was the big thing. And nowadays, I mean, I'm kind of like Connie in the sense like, like it is what it is.
Yeah.
I don't like pay too much attention to it, but it would also be a lie to say that it doesn't affect me at all, because sometimes you see pictures of like people out on vacation, right? And the thing that happens to me the most, right? And I'm not gonna name any names, but sometimes I see someone's picture and they're like traveling to this like exotic place, and I'm like, no, I know you're broke. Like, how are you there? You know what I'm saying? Like, how are you making your money last more than I am? This is what I think about. Right. Yeah, this is what I
call people out.
yeah. This is like how social media affects me, right? I'm like I know I make more money than you do.
You're judging.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe it's a form of judging, but like in my mind, I'm like, I know I make more money than you do, and I'm not able to do all these things that I see you doing on your social media constantly. How are you making this happen, and I can't? That's what I'm saying. It would be a lie to say that I don't use social media to compare myself to other people. But that's when we have to reel it in, see what God has us. And I mean, my life is super blessed, everything that I have. So just taking scope of like the things I do have and what God has given me.
I've thought of that before.
Yeah.
I see that a lot.
Right.
Like, I follow so many people, and I'm like, how are you doing this?
Right. You know what I mean.
You get me? So I'm like, I get to think, I'm like, are you really willing to like pay all this money to show social media that you're traveling, or that you're getting money, or that you have a really nice car? Don't get me wrong. I really like seeing people getting nice cars. Yeah. It gives me inspo, and it gives me like motivation. Like, maybe I'll get to that place. Right. But we also go to the other side of placing those people on like a pedestal. Yeah. And that hurts other people. Now I want to like switch it a little bit to like seeing social media people and how we affect other people's mental health. I'm gonna be honest. I have done that before. Way before I was a Christian. I would be like, I want to be like that person. But I would be after every single step. And if they failed, it was like, wow. Like, how could you fail? Yeah. You get me? Like, you have so much money. You have such a big fan base. You have such like big followers. You're trending on TikTok, on Instagram, Snapchat, on everything. Back then on MySpace.
So MySpace, not MySpace.
Not MySpace.
Yeah, I know you were never part of that era. MySpace.
We're just making fun of you.
Yeah.
So it's like putting those people on a pedestal, and like we don't even take into consideration how we're hurting those people. Even like on social media, and even like here nowadays, like you'll be talking to someone and they'll be like, oh, like I couldn't do this, and they're like, for real? Like, you really couldn't get into that school, or you couldn't do that? I wouldn't put my case as that happened to me, because my friends really didn't find out that I dropped out of college until I literally, like, we graduated, and they're like, oh, so, like, I'll see you in FIU next week? And I was like, I didn't even register. I just dropped out, all of this. So they didn't even have time to, like, tell me, like, how dare you drop out of college? But inside, I was like, I'm not going to tell them, because that's the response that I'm going to get from people. Like, now I joke about it because I kind of healed it. So it's like, I'll get over it. I'll laugh with you. Like, I'll totally laugh with you if you're going to laugh about me dropping out of college. But before, it was kind of like, I don't want to tell people that I'm dropping out of college because it embarrasses me. It hurts me. I think that I'm like a failure to people. So it's kind of like what we feel. How are we making people feel about their own mental health?
For me, is that I always put out like an image of like my perfect life. But when I tell you my life is probably the farthest thing from perfect, I'm telling you, like, perfection, my life. So, to put it into context, I always try to put out, like, it is a highlight reel. Like, what else would Instagram call your stories, the little highlights on your page? Why else would someone have no posts on their Instagram? Like, why else do I post once in a blue moon? Because, like, it is a highlight reel. Whenever I do have a good day, yeah, I'll post it. But is my every single day a good day? Absolutely not. And I feel like me putting myself out there for the fact that I got into the state level to a competition, but now I'm just like, what if I don't make it to nationals? What are they gonna say? It's just living up to the fact that I know I'm causing the problem and I can stop it, but it's just also the peer pressure, like Connie, people are gonna tell me, why'd you stop trying? Why are you so like whatever about it? Like you had such a nice feed before. Your stories were so pretty. Yeah. Like, it's just also the peer pressure effect of, like, knowing that there's people watching me. Yeah. And it stresses me out because it's just, like, thinking about the fact that people are going to judge me.
Yeah, but that's what I mean of, like, when you feed into something that could be affecting you, yet you still do it. That's like one of my main points. Like, for me, I've seen social media affect people like in such a strong way, and they still do it, and they still post, and they're every little day or little like Starbucks like on their story.
She's watching your stories.
Not a personal tag.
But
But it's affecting them, but they still feed into it because of that. Going back to that persona that they themselves already made, and they're like, how do I stop this? Like, okay, I set myself up for failure basically because I set up an expectation for people to see, and now people have an expectation of that. And for me, the way to deal with that is either limit your time usage in social media. Don't try to like go so deep into context of people's lives, because even if you post your every little day on social media, you're never going to be able to truly know or understand what's happening through a screen to a person, right? Like, you could be at Starbucks getting like, you know, like an amazing coffee and be crying, like, and still post it on your story, because that's just how it works. So in my opinion, just remember that not everything, right, like the basic, not everything you see on social media is true, but don't set yourself up for an expectation that you know isn't truly you, or what you want other people to perceive you as.
what would you say, Anna? That's like a tip that you would give to people, or like good advice on how to deal with mental health or social
I
media.
mean, take it one day at a time and understand that your brain deceives you, and your heart deceives you, your flesh deceives you, the people around you may deceive you, not in the ways that like, oh, they're gonna like throw you under the bus and stuff like that. Like, people around you are gonna set expectations of you and set standards for you, but you're not always going to reach them. And it's just like coming to terms with that is a very long road that I am still walking. It's something you have to like train yourself into thinking that, hey, I failed. I didn't get to where I wanted to be. I didn't get the grade I wanted. I didn't meet the standard. Taking it little by little and taking moments for yourself and knowing that you're not going to complete everything all at the same time. And that you have 5 tasks lined up, yes, but you can do one every single day. And it's not something that you have to give yourself time to recuperate mentally, physically, like, and emotionally recuperate, especially from stressful situations. So just to not throw yourself into things knowing you're not going to be able to do them, and knowing that you are going to have to take it little by little. You will suffer if you throw yourself into situations knowingly that are going to hurt you and that are going to mentally cause you a lot of stress and a lot of anxiety. And for me, it causes me a lot of deep depression rifts that I get into, little pools, like when I don't complete tasks or when I don't give myself time to mentally recuperate. That anxiety can lead to me being anxious about the littlest things that I usually am not anxious about. So it's just knowing to take it step by step.
Taking time for yourself is the best thing. I think we can all say that.
Yeah.
It was a really good chat on a really, I wouldn't say trending topic, because I don't want to treat it like that, because it's something very serious.
Right.
But it's something that we're dealing with daily nowadays, more than just like semester wise and everything. I definitely think it's gonna bring light somewhere to someone. So thank you guys for coming, and thank you guys for being us.
Bye.